The office of Lux and Linen Limited didn't just look expensive, it sounded expensive. Each step across the polished marble floors hummed faintly, like cash whispering beneath your heels. Sunlight poured through towering windows, falling on walls lined with fabric samples. Ivory cashmere soft enough to beg for caresses, storm grey silk that caught the light like liquid smoke, ocean blue linen cool and crisp under the fingertips. Every texture was a promise of luxury, but Evelyn Morrow knew it was the labour behind the luxury. The late nights, the tiny mistakes corrected, the unglamorous grind that never made the magazines. This was Evelyn's kingdom, and Celeste Ward, her so-called best friend, was the queen who smiled beside her throne. They had built it together, 6 years of caffeine-fueled marathons, red-eye flights that left their hair frizzed and their eyes heavy, half-laughed breakdowns in hotel rooms, and dreams so audacious that sleepless nights felt glamorous. Lux and Linen had become a name synonymous with ethical luxury. The Financial Times had called them the two women redefining conscious wealth. On paper, they were equal partners. In spirit, Evelyn had liked to think they were sisters. But some sisters bite the hand that feeds them, and Evelyn had learned that even the closest alliances could crack under ambition. Celeste handled the charm, investors, interviews, camera lenses that never blinked. Evelyn handled the reality, design, production, the sweat-stained backbone of every silk scarf and tailored jacket. She had always trusted Celeste to keep the public-facing world polished, to handle the applause and flattery, while she kept the machinery running quietly and perfectly. That morning the boardroom smelled of gardenias and something sharper, ambition disguised as perfume. Evelyn bent over a new fabric sample, her fingers brushing against the delicate weave, feeling the threads hum beneath her touch. The soft click of heels announced Celeste's entrance. As always, she was late. As always, she was radiant, her arrival a careful balance of precision and effortless charm. She carried a faint smirk that said, "I've already won," and Evelyn felt the familiar tightness in her chest. "Ev, darling," Celeste began, setting her Hermes bag delicately on the table, "the Meridian guys loved the pitch. We're practically funded." Evelyn looked up, her eyes sharp yet warm, and asked, "They loved the designs or your speech?" Celeste laughed, settling gracefully into her chair. "Oh, both, obviously, but mostly the vision. You know how they are, they like polish, presence. They said we have the next Stella McCartney meets Hermes. I told them we'll exceed that." Evelyn smiled politely, the kind of smile that hid 1,000 calculations. "Just make sure they remember it's we, not you." Celeste's smile faltered for a heartbeat, the briefest hesitation before thawing again. "Of course, darling, don't be so sensitive. You know I always speak for both of us." That tone, it sounded like friendship, but it carried the subtle scent of manipulation wrapped in silk. Evelyn noted it without comment, the way one notes a crack in a mirror, small now but capable of growing if ignored. Later that afternoon, Evelyn watched from her design studio, high above the bustling office. Celeste sat before the Harper's Bazaar cameras, the lighting perfect, the gold accents gleaming, hydrangeas fresh and arranged like stage props. Celeste leaned toward the interviewer, laughing on cue, her voice a melody polished to precision. "Evelyn is the creative genius truly," she said, lips curved with practiced sweetness. "I just bring the business acumen." Every word was flawless, too flawless. Evelyn had learned long ago that the world never listened for the quiet one in the room. The headline tomorrow would read, "Celeste Ward, the mind behind Lux and Linen." When the cameras cut, Celeste spotted Evelyn through the glass partition. She waved, a glossy, rehearsed motion that could sell anything, handbags, ideas, illusions. Evelyn forced a smile. The kind of smile reserved for funerals, graceful, silent, entirely rehearsed. That evening, they celebrated at a private dining room in the Connaught. Crystal glasses caught the candlelight, lobster ravioli steamed in delicate swirls, and the scent of truffle mingled with soft classical music. Celeste, as always, ordered champagne. "To us," she toasted, her smile bright, flawless. "To us," Evelyn echoed, her tone measured, her eyes unreadable. "You know," Celeste continued, swirling her glass with elegant precision, "we're this close to closing the Series B. Meridian wants a new corporate structure before they commit. Just some boring legal housekeeping. Our lawyer will send the papers tomorrow." Evelyn's brow lifted slightly. "Housekeeping?" Celeste's smile was sharp, selling both reassurance and subtle dominance. "Just investor compliance, darling. You don't want them thinking we're unprepared. It's mostly formalities, signature stuff, trust me." And you've reviewed it? Evelyn asked. Of course, Celeste said. I wouldn't let anything touch our company that wasn't beneficial. She added lightly, almost innocently, I'll forward it from my assistant. You just need to sign by Friday so we can send it to Meridian. Evelyn nodded slowly. Send it, I'll read it first. Celeste laughed, touching her hand in mock affection. Oh Ev, you and your thoroughness, you could audit a love letter. Evelyn smiled politely, but her mind lingered on that word, housekeeping. In Celeste's vocabulary it often meant reconstruction, and reconstruction was one step away from removal. Evelyn thought back to their first meeting, a Milan textile exhibition. Celeste had been draped in red silk, magnetic and loud, spilling her espresso on Evelyn's sketchbook before insisting on buying a new one. Within 3 coffees they were plotting a brand together. Celeste called her the heart. Evelyn called her the voice. Somewhere along the way, the voice began talking over the heart. Near midnight, Evelyn opened her laptop in her townhouse. A blinking subject line caught her eye. Supplemental Founders Agreement, urgent for signature. From Celeste at Ward Holdings, Co. UK. Attached LL Founders Supplemental 2024, PDF, 28 pages of dense, perfectly formatted legal text. Celeste's note was brief. Darling, just investor formalities. I've signed my part already, just add your signature on page 27 so we can wrap by morning. They're breathing down my neck for this. Love, C. Evelyn scanned the first few pages. Standard legal jargon, definitions, clauses, boilerplate, managing entity, fiduciary consolidation, treasury structure. It looked legitimate, it felt legitimate. But somewhere deep inside, a whisper nagged, read it again. She didn't, not that night, because sometimes trust is just a habit that hasn't yet been broken. Outside, London glittered under the rain, sleek, elegant, merciless. Evelyn closed her laptop and poured a glass of wine. The contract sat in her inbox, waiting. Across the city, Celeste's penthouse lights glowed late into the night. She was on a call with Meridian's investor director, her laughter smooth as glass. She'll sign by morning, Celeste said, twirling her pen. She always does. And just like that, the first signature of betrayal was set in motion. They say never mix business with friendship. But in London, betrayal wears lipstick and carries a shareholders' agreement. The studio lights were merciless, a harsh white glare that exposed everything, every pore, every twitch, every tiny truth hiding beneath a practiced smile. Evelyn never liked interviews. They made her feel fragile, like the skin she wore wasn't thick enough, like every quiet thought could tumble into the wrong ear. Celeste, on the other hand, thrived under the scrutiny. Interviews were her battlefield, each gesture chess move, each smile rehearsed to perfection. She played the game in heels and lipstick, elegant but strategic. The BBC lifestyle team arrived early, cameras gleaming, lights on tripods perfectly aligned. Luxe and Linen was the featured British success story, a testament to 6 years of labour, ambition and sleepless nights. Evelyn watched from a quiet corner, her fingers resting lightly on a leather sketchbook, knotting angles of light, how shadows framed her partner's face. 6 years of partnership, global recognition, and a brand valued at nearly £40 million. The interviewer began, voice crisp, professional. That's impressive. How do you make it work? Celeste's smile came first, flawless, practiced, luminous. It's about trust, she said, voice honey smooth, curling over the words like silk. Complementary strengths. I handle the business and brand direction, and Evelyn, she turned her head with a slow elegance, is the artistic soul. Evelyn nodded, adjusting her blazer with a subtle flick. I suppose I make things and Celeste makes people believe in them, she said softly, measured, careful. Celeste laughed lightly, a sound polished enough to echo on magazine covers, and laid a manicured hand on Evelyn's knee, a gesture both familiar and territorial. Oh, don't be modest, darling, Celeste said. You're quiet, yes, but we all know your sketches are the heart of the company. Evelyn caught the half-second pause, the flicker in her friend's smile that suggested she could have corrected the phrasing, could have steered the perception back toward balance. She didn't. Celeste's grin remained silk over steel, flawless for the cameras, unflinching. The interviewer leaned in. So, Celeste, would it be fair to say you're the visionary of the brand? Evelyn felt the air shift, a quiet tightening in her chest. Celeste could have clarified, balanced the words, acknowledged Evelyn's quiet dominion. She didn't. I suppose every company needs a captain, Celeste said, voice smooth, almost playful. Evelyn's brilliance shines through the details, mine just happens to navigate the bigger picture. Evelyn's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Funny, she murmured, soft but deliberate. I thought the bigger picture was the details. The interviewer chuckled, unsure what to make of it. Celeste didn't notice. Evelyn did, and she savored the moment silently, storing it like a blueprint of cracks forming beneath the surface. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, Celeste's voice dropped to a hiss, sharp, dangerous. Was that necessary? What honesty? Evelyn replied lightly, almost teasing, slipping her sketchbook into her bag. Celeste's laugh was soft, curling in the air like smoke. You made us look divided. We are divided, Evelyn said simply. You just keep pretending the split isn't happening. Celeste leaned closer, perfume a commanding note of jasmine over something colder. Careful, Ev, investors hate instability. And designers hate thieves, Evelyn countered, voice quiet but unwavering. Celeste's smile returned, brittle, diamond-hard. She turned and walked away, heels clicking a rhythm of dominance. Evelyn remained, staring at the Luxe and Linen logo gleaming on the studio wall, two intertwined L's, now beginning to look more like a trap than a symbol of partnership. 2 days later, Evelyn found herself in the glass-walled conference room, surrounded by the core team. Celeste presided at the head of the table, radiant and invincible, flanked by 2 lawyers she had never met. Sterile navy suits, neutral faces, eyes sharp, calculating. Let's begin, Celeste said smoothly, effortless command in every syllable. We're restructuring under Ward Luxe Holdings, standard investor requirement, nothing changes operationally. Evelyn's pen hovered mid-note. Ward Luxe Holdings, she repeated carefully. That wasn't in our agreement. Celeste laughed softly, the kind of laugh that tolerated naive concerns. It's a parent company, darling. Streamlines our equity for Meridian's compliance. You'll still own your 50%. Still, Evelyn interrupted, calm but dangerous, every word deliberate. That's an interesting word. One lawyer, precise, pale, stepped forward. It's simply a vehicle company, Ms. Morau. Ms. Ward's name is on it purely for registration convenience. Celeste nodded, radiating charm. Exactly, my name, your vision, the perfect balance. Evelyn studied her, seeing for the first time the full architecture of betrayal. Every word, every clause, every carefully measured smile was meant to reshape what had once been theirs into something Celeste controlled. That night, Evelyn printed the supplemental founders' agreement and the restructuring documents. 3 pages in, her stomach dropped. Clause 9.2. All intellectual property, designs, trademarks and brand assets shall be assigned to Ward Luxe Holdings Limited, of which Celeste Ward is majority shareholder. Clause 10.1. Founding partner Evelyn Morau retains a 48% non-voting interest. Non-voting, her company, her name, her designs stripped of power. Evelyn closed her eyes, a deliberate pause, then a smile, faint, dangerous, calculated, a smile that acknowledged the shift and, more importantly, the opportunities it now presented. Betrayal, she thought, doesn't always shatter you. Sometimes it organizes you. The next morning, Evelyn arrived at the office early. Coffee brewing, lights flipped on, personal design folder open. Hidden sketches, hand-painted samples, experimental prototypes, never uploaded to the company server, quietly documented, photographed, originals locked away. She hummed softly, serene, calm. Working on the spring line, Celeste's voice floated in, casual, probing. Something like that, Evelyn replied without looking up. Celeste paused, momentarily distracted by Evelyn's composed efficiency. Perfect. Meridian's expecting final numbers tomorrow, and Evelyn, thank you for trusting me. Not everyone could. Evelyn turned slowly, meeting her gaze. Velvet smooth, calm, poised. Oh, I trust you completely, Celeste. I just don't think you'll like what happens next. Celeste blinked, caught off guard. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing you'll understand until it's too late, Evelyn said, faint smile brushing her lips, leaving a whisper of champagne and vengeance lingering as she walked away. Calm, unshaken. In business, partnerships end 2 ways, with applause or with paperwork. Celeste had chosen paperwork. Evelyn was about to choose the other. The morning after she discovered the clause, Evelyn Morau stopped reacting. She smiled when Celeste entered a room, laughed during meetings, nodded politely on strategy calls. To anyone else she appeared calm, compliant, loyal even. But behind the glass walls of her office, long past midnight, she lingered with lights dim, laptop open, espresso cooling untouched at her side. Each document, each email, each subtle phrasing in the contract was a map of betrayal, and Evelyn studied it like a case file. She reached for her phone, dialing Richard Lang, an old friend and corporate lawyer from their startup accelerator days. He owed her a favor, and she was ready to collect. "Send me everything," Richard said quietly, his tone professional, almost neutral. "And Evelyn, don't confront her yet, just keep signing what she gives you, but this time save copies first." Evelyn smirked, low and measured. "You sound like you've met Celeste." "I have, once, at your launch party." She smiled like a CEO, shook hands like a politician. "That bad?" "Worse, she even thanked me for attending your event." Evelyn laughed softly. "Then you'll understand why I'm not playing nice anymore." That week, Celeste announced operational adjustments in the guise of efficiency and investor alignment. The email arrived in everyone's inbox. From Celeste Ward. To all staff. Subject: Lux and Linen, restructuring and new leadership flow. To ensure efficiency and investor alignment, Lux and Linen will operate under Ward Lux Holdings going forward. Evelyn Morau will continue leading creative development under my executive direction. All media, partnership, and investor communications will be centralized under my office. Exciting times ahead. C. Ward. Evelyn read the memo twice, printed it once, and filed it meticulously in a folder labeled Receipts. The flourish of Celeste's digital signature felt like a decree, precise, regal, a queen signing over a kingdom she had already begun to take. Evelyn's lips curved in the faintest smirk. Every move Celeste made now would be catalogued, every tiny misstep recorded. The gala at the Rosewood Mayfair dripped with chandeliers like liquid gold. Strings hummed from a corner quartet. Waiters moved like shadows across polished floors. Lux and Linen celebrated its 5th anniversary, Meridian Capital sponsoring, cameras poised, glasses ready. Celeste wore ivory silk, untouchable, flawless. Evelyn chose deep red, velvet, dangerous, a subtle declaration of power without ceremony. "Evelyn, darling," Celeste greeted, kissing both cheeks, a performance of intimacy. "You look radiant, try not to outshine me tonight," she said, voice smooth, teasing. Evelyn's lips lifted in a polite smile. "Wouldn't dream of it," she replied, eyes steady, observing every glance, every posture of control. Seated beside the Meridian board, Celeste charmed them effortlessly. Anecdotes, subtle humor, self-deprecating smiles hiding razor-sharp hunger. Evelyn remained silent, obedient on the surface, while cataloguing every gesture, every slip, every overreach. Halfway through dessert, Celeste tapped her glass with delicate precision. "Before dessert, I'd like to make a small announcement," she said, standing, radiant under golden light. "As Lux and Linen enters its next chapter, I'm thrilled to announce a strategic partnership with Ward Lux Holdings to expand our European operations. This step..." Evelyn's hand tightened subtly around her glass. She rose with the air of calm inevitability. "Celeste," she said, voice smooth yet carrying measured, "perhaps you should clarify, Ward Lux Holdings isn't a partnership. It's your personal holding company, isn't it?" The table froze. Conversations faltered mid-chew. Celeste's smile flickered, just a heartbeat before regaining form. "Evelyn, dear, this isn't the time." "Oh, but it is," Evelyn said, serene, deliberate. "Investors should know who owns what before they toast to it." The chairman of Meridian frowned. "Ms. Ward, is this accurate?" Celeste laughed, brushing it off as a technicality. "Just corporate structuring. Evelyn handles the creative side, she doesn't get into legal details." Evelyn's gaze fixed on him, unwavering. "On the contrary, I read every line of that contract, eventually." Even the violins seemed to hesitate, waiting. Raising her glass, Evelyn's tone was cool, steady, unshakable. "To Lux and Linen," she said, "to our beginnings, and to everyone who remembers who signed the first check." Polite chuckles, some wary side-eyes. Celeste's smile froze, brittle as thin ice under a spotlight. Leaning closer, Evelyn whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. "Don't worry, Celeste, I'll let you enjoy tonight. But tell your lawyers to read Section 14.5, the IP clause you copied. You'll find it doesn't protect you quite the way you think." Celeste's eyes flashed with alarm. "What have you done?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "Nothing illegal, just balanced the scales, a little fine print of my own." After the gala, while Celeste basked in flashbulbs and champagne, Evelyn slipped to the valet stand, phone in hand. A quick exchange with Richard. It's done, she announced the holding company publicly. Ah, perfect, we have her admission, time to pull the audit trail. Good, start with the IP registry. I think she's been moving assets. Ah, that's felony grade. So is betrayal. She slipped the phone back into her clutch, stepped into the night air, cool, clean, quiet. London glittered around her, indifferent, beautiful, merciless. Lighting a cigarette she didn't intend to smoke, she murmured to herself. 5 years, you steal my name, my company, my vision, and expect applause. She exhaled slowly, letting the city absorb the weight of her words. Fine, I'll give you a standing ovation, right before I pull the curtain down. The first rule of business betrayal: never underestimate the woman who read the contract twice. Once for signing, and once for revenge. Celeste thought she'd buried Evelyn in paperwork. She didn't realize she'd just handed her the shovel. Monday morning arrived like Judgment Day. London was draped in a slate-grey sky, clouds pressing down as if conspiring with the headlines that had already begun to ripple across screens. Evelyn's phone buzzed incessantly, each notification more insistent than the last. The Financial Standard led with a story that felt surgical, cutting through Celeste's meticulously curated image. Ward Lux Holdings under scrutiny, ownership questions raised at Meridian Gala. The article quoted her on-stage remark word for word. Even worse, it explicitly named Celeste as the sole beneficiary of the asset transfer clause, hinting that she had misled both her co-founder and investors alike. By noon, the phones in Lux and Linen's glass tower rang without pause. Staff whispered in corridors, PR teams scrambled, journalists camped outside like vultures sensing blood. Celeste stormed into Evelyn's office, her perfect makeup stretched taut over a pale, rigid face. You did this. Evelyn closed her laptop with deliberate calm, leaning back in her chair. I asked a question, she said evenly. It's not my fault the truth sounded scandalous. Do you have any idea what you've started? A conversation, Evelyn replied, voice soft but sharp. About ownership, transparency and trust, the kind of values you love to print on our packaging. Celeste slammed her palm on the desk. You're finished here. Evelyn stood, serene, eyes level. Funny, you said that before the investors called me this morning. They seem to prefer partners who don't hide shell companies. Celeste froze. What did you tell them? Evelyn smiled faintly, almost kindly. Nothing. I just sent them the same documents you asked me to sign. They drew their own conclusions. Celeste's hand trembled as she reached for her phone. Evelyn watched, calm. You know, Celeste, she said softly, you should have read my contract too. By afternoon, Meridian Capital hit the pause button on the next funding round. A memo circulated with clinical precision. Subject: temporary freeze on Lux and Linen disbursement. Pending review of corporate governance and shareholding disclosures, all new capital releases are on hold. Meridian Compliance Division. Celeste's PR spin was frantic: miscommunication, administrative delay, creative differences. But the internet smelled drama. Clips of the gala leaked to social media. #Ward vs Morrow trended on Twitter. Fashion bloggers picked sides. An online meme captured it perfectly. Celeste Ward, founder, visionary, victim of her own signature. Satire had gone viral, poetic justice transmitted over Wi-Fi. While Celeste spiraled through crisis meetings, Evelyn sat at a small cafe downtown, laptop open, manila folder beside her. Across from her sat Lydia, former head of product, who had quit 2 months earlier over creative differences. You said you had a new project, Lydia said cautiously. A new beginning, Evelyn corrected. Same vision, different name. She slid the folder across. Inside, mock-ups, sketches, prototypes familiar yet evolved. A sleek logo stared back at Lydia, VLIN. Velin, Lydia murmured. Latin for veil, Evelyn said, eyes gleaming. And if you rearrange the letters? Lydia's eyes widened, EVLIN. Evelyn smiled, calm, poised. Exactly, I'm done hiding behind someone else's name. That week, Evelyn began quietly calling the people Celeste had underestimated. Tom, the supplier Celeste had underpaid for 3 months. Nadia, the PR assistant, fired for asking too many questions. Greg, the IT manager who still had admin access to Ward Lux's internal archive. They met in dim cafes, late nights, encrypted chats. Evelyn promised no money, only justice. "You don't have to destroy her," Nadia said one evening, hesitant. "I don't," Evelyn replied, closing her laptop. "She's already doing that herself, I'm just documenting it." They laughed quietly, a shared kind of defiance. By month's end, Evelyn had a secret operation running. A new domain, VELIN, trademarks filed, supplier agreements under a clean legal entity, all invisible to Celeste, all quietly humming toward life. Celeste was cracking. She appeared on a morning talk show, hair immaculate, tone falsely cheerful. "Lux and Linen remains a united company," she declared. The interviewer raised an eyebrow. "Is Ms. Morrow still part of that unity?" Celeste's smile wavered. "Ms. Morrow is exploring creative freedom at the moment." The clip went viral. Within hours, investors began pulling out. Satirical captions flooded TikTok. Creative freedom TM, also known as being betrayed by your business partner. In a glass tower high above the city, Celeste faced her board, 12 silent faces on screen. The chairman of Meridian spoke first. "Ms. Ward, our due diligence has raised concerns. Asset transfers, misrepresented holdings, and unapproved filings. We need clarification." Celeste stammered. This was Evelyn's doing. "Actually," another voice interrupted, "the documents are signed by you. The filings trace back to Ward Lux Holdings, not Ms. Morrow." Her throat went dry. Her assistant's voice echoed faintly. "The auditors want access to your personal accounts." Celeste's marble facade, pristine, perfect, was crumbling. The rot beneath the gold was finally visible. A week later, Evelyn released a quiet press note through her lawyer. Press statement, EVLYN MOE. "After my departure from Lux and Linen, I've devoted myself to a new venture, VELIN. Our focus is sustainability, integrity, and transparency, the values I once believed were universal. No attacks, no accusations, just elegance and implication." The next morning, Vogue Business ran the headline. From betrayal to reinvention, Evelyn Morrow's VELIN set to redefine luxury ethics. Velin's first Instagram post was simple, white background, black serif font. "Loyalty, the rarest luxury." It hit 2 million views overnight. Celeste built a brand on luxury. Evelyn built one on irony. One wore gold. The other wore patience. And in business, patience always outlasts the PR. Celeste had stolen the company. Evelyn had stolen the narrative, and in the end, that's the only ownership that matters. By midsummer, Lux and Linen gleamed with the illusion of perfection. Glossy billboards lined Piccadilly, influencer collaborations filled Instagram feeds, and soft-focus ads of models drifting in linen dresses made the brand look untouchable. From the outside, everything sparkled. From the inside, chaos had quietly taken root. Invoices went unpaid. Suppliers withdrew without explanation. A shipment bound for Paris disappeared mid-route, lost in the ambiguity between two sets of documents, Celeste's and Evelyn. The operations team was drowning in confusion. Investors wanted blood. Celeste tried her usual tools, charm first, pressure second. But charm only works when people still believe you wield power, and now she didn't. Emails leaked to Business Now. Celeste Ward approved fund transfers from company accounts to personal subsidiaries, pending board investigation. Screenshots went viral overnight, comment sections turned vicious, Celeste collapse trended. Evelyn sat in her new office, a minimalist loft in Soho. White walls, clean air, quiet, almost sacred. Above her desk in black lettering. "Integrity doesn't scream, it simply waits to be proven right." Lydia slid into the chair across from her, laptop in hand. "We're live," she said softly. VELIN had launched. Its debut collection, Inheritance, was more than clothing, it was symbolism stitched into fabric. Dresses made from repurposed Lux and linen scraps. Packaging embossed with faint outlines of a broken crown. Ads showing women leaving boardrooms barefoot but smiling. Tagline, "Luxury that doesn't lie." Satire wrapped in sophistication. Within 48 hours, pre-orders crashed the site. Celeste's lawyers struck back. From Ward Lux Legal. Subject, trademark violation. Ms. Morau's new brand, Velin, infringes upon Lux and Linen's design IP. Immediate cessation is demanded, failing which legal action will follow. Evelyn's lawyer, Richard, replied with surgical precision. Please note, Ms. Morau is the registered originator of said designs per IP filings dated prior to Ward Lux's incorporation. Your client's claim, if pursued, will constitute perjury under UK Business and Trade Act 2006. He added one final line, laced with subtle menace. We suggest Ms. Ward review her paperwork more closely this time. The email leaked, the internet rejoiced. Celeste watched her empire crumble in real time. Shareholders demanded she step down. Her name, once synonymous with elegance, became a cautionary headline. Her assistant quit, her PR firm abandoned her. The bank froze her accounts pending investigation. At the last board meeting she attended, the chairman didn't even glance at her. Ms. Ward, he said simply, we appreciate your contribution, but Lux and Linen needs to survive this scandal. Without you. The silence that followed could end careers. Celeste walked out of the boardroom alone. No cameras, no applause, just the cold echo of inevitability. Weeks later, Velin staged its first show not at Fashion Week, but in an abandoned glasshouse transformed into a luminous art space. No sponsors, no paparazzi, just 100 invitations embossed with gold and honesty. The final dress, the partner's ghost, drew gasps. Sheer panels stitched with metallic thread symbolized transparency and resilience. When Evelyn stepped forward for the bow, she didn't smile. She merely nodded, a quiet acknowledgement that she had rebuilt her kingdom from the ashes of someone else's greed. Reporters swarmed. Ms. Morau, any message for your former partner? Evelyn paused. I hope she finally learns the difference between ownership and integrity. And do you forgive her? A faint smile curved her lips. Forgiveness is a luxury, I prefer profit. The quote exploded online. Forgiveness is a luxury, I prefer profit. It was remixed, merchandised, quoted and shared. Velin's sales tripled overnight. In the background, Celeste was spotted leaving her old office with a cardboard box, the final relic of her reign. Satirical voiceover for narration. They said what goes around comes around. They forgot, sometimes it comes back wearing heels and holding your old job title. Celeste built her empire on illusion. Evelyn built hers on truth. One crumbled, one glowed. And somewhere between the two, justice put on lipstick. Revenge didn't ruin Evelyn, it refined her. And as for Celeste, she finally understood that some partnerships don't end, they simply invert. The studio lights cut across Celeste Ward's face like interrogation beams, too bright, too deliberate. The makeup artist's hands trembled as she powdered her cheekbones. The network promised a compassionate interview, but even the host's smile looked rehearsed. Celeste adjusted her silk blouse, ivory, a visual promise of purity. Behind the camera, her new PR agent whispered, soft voice, eyes moist, think empathy, not ego. The red light blinked, showtime. Celeste spoke first, soft and measured. Because silence allows others to write your story, I owe it to the truth and to the women who once believed in me. A practiced tremor entered her voice. She looked down at her blouse, searching for sincerity somewhere in the folds. The pivot was elegant, a masterclass in reassigning guilt. Within hours, the clip flooded social media. Celeste Speaks trended. Influencers reposted crying stills, captioned with half-baked quotes about resilience and second chances. Her tears became the new aesthetic. But not everyone was buying it. At Velin's London HQ, Evelyn watched silently on her laptop. No commentary, no judgment, just observation. Lydia, folding her arms, said softly, she's good, almost convincing. The internet loves a redemption arc. They love pretending too, Evelyn murmured, eyes fixed on the screen. When the clip ended, Evelyn closed the laptop and turned toward the window. The city lights blinked like indifferent spectators. Do we respond? Lydia asked. No, Evelyn said. Not even a statement. Especially not a statement. Her tone was calm, razor-sharp. Let her drown in her own noise. Truth doesn't compete, it waits. Lydia smiled faintly. You do know that sounds like a quote people will steal. Then let them, it'll make her apology look cheap. For a week, Celeste's apology worked. Engagement surged. Her empathy collection pre-orders broke records, linen blouses in shades named Renewal and Grace. But beneath the surface, numbers didn't align. Jordan scrolled through analytics, tension coiling in his voice. "We've got traffic but no conversions. They're watching you, not buying you." "They will," Celeste snapped. "They always do." "No," he said flatly. "They did, that's different." Still, she pressed on: interviews, brand partnerships, even a new podcast called Unthreaded, rebuilding from the ruins, all image, no structure. A facade held together by hashtags and borrowed sentiment. Meanwhile, Velin moved like quiet thunder. While Celeste played her redemption arc on camera, Evelyn redeployed reality. A limited edition campaign. The truth wears well. No celebrity endorsements, just artisans, workers, tailors, every face the fashion world usually erased. In one promo, a seamstress whispered softly, "Some bosses build brands, some build people, only one survives time." The internet lit up quietly, reverently. Evelyn's embodiment of authenticity collided directly with Celeste's contrived return to honesty. The irony was poetic. Then came the subtle strike. One Monday morning, Evelyn's legal counsel called. "We received notice, a cyber complaint. Celeste's team alleges Velin stole their supplier database." Evelyn frowned. "Our own suppliers are in those emails." "Exactly, which makes it clever. They're using your real data to stage a fake breach." Lydia's jaw tightened. "She's desperate." "Desperation has a scent," Evelyn said coldly, "and she's spraying it like perfume." They launched a quiet internal audit, not to defend but to expose. Within 3 days, it traced the digital fingerprints to Celeste's former assistant, secretly paid through a consulting shell. Evelyn didn't call the police, didn't leak it. She sent a single email instead. Subject: "You're leaking, not leading." Body: "Just a friendly reminder, some things can't be rebranded." Zape: "No threats, no drama, just quiet that made a guilty person implode." Fashion press had a field day. Watching Celeste's rebrand is like watching a thief repaint the house they stole. Velin dresses women in truth, Luxe and Linen dresses the lies. The satire became unintentional, the world mocking Celeste. Her name, once whispered with envy, now an industry meme. That night, Evelyn sat by her window overlooking the Thames, a glass of white wine untouched beside her. Triumph should have swelled in her chest, but it didn't. Lydia called. "We cleared the allegations. Everything's stable again." "Good, let it settle. Quiet wins last longer." "You really think she'll stop?" "No," Evelyn said softly. "But that's the beauty of self-destruction. You don't have to intervene, just let gravity work." The city lights shimmered across her reflection, one part woman, one part vengeance. Beneath her calm exterior, the next phase of her plan was already taking shape. Not public, not loud, something financial, permanent. Celeste had started a game she didn't know was still being played. Rain tapped softly against the glass of my office window, a steady percussion to accompany the quiet orchestration of an empire's collapse. London sprawled beneath me in a haze of neon and mist, indifferent, alive, unaware that a battle of patience and precision was underway. Inside, everything was serene. The long glass table, the single laptop humming softly, the pot of untouched coffee beside me, dark as the thoughts I harbored. Across from me, Amira Voss moved like a shadow of certainty. She never spoke in adjectives, only numbers, the language I trusted more than words. "Our projections confirm it," she said, voice precise, clipped. "Ward Lux Holdings' liquidity has dropped below 30%. She's over-leveraged, relying on short-term credit for long-term liabilities." I nodded slowly, letting the words land. "Meaning?" "Meaning," Amira continued, sliding a document across the table. "If we acquire shares incrementally, she'll sell before she realizes who's buying. The window is narrow, but it exists." I studied the paper. Veris Capital Limited, a London-based firm with no visible ties to Velin or me. Perfect. "And by then?" I asked, lips curling faintly. "She'll have sold her crown," Amira said, voice calm, clinical. Outside town, Celeste sat in her old penthouse, surrounded by boxes that smelled faintly of forgotten power. The reflection in the window was foreign, polished, anxious, desperate. Her phone buzzed. Miles, her accountant, was tense, clipped. "You'll need cash flow or to liquidate shares," he said. Her hand clenched around the phone. "Then sell," she murmured, unaware the game had shifted. The empire she thought she controlled was quietly devouring her from the inside out. Over 6 weeks, Veris Capital quietly accumulated 14% of Ward Luck's holdings. Tranches of shares purchased here and there, invisible to her eyes, unnoticed until the consolidation filings were filed. Every approval she gave, every desperate signature, was a piece of her kingdom slipping into hands she never suspected. One evening, Lydia and I sat in a dimly lit restaurant, soft jazz curling over the hush of other diners. A candle flickered, casting delicate shadows over her face. "You're dismantling her piece by piece," she said quietly, tracing the rim of her glass as if doing so could measure morality itself. I cut through my steak with careful rhythm, savouring the precision. "No, I'm collecting what she undervalued, the truth she refused to see." Her eyes lifted, skepticism mingling with awe. "You sound like a villain." "Villains act for ego," I said, slow, deliberate. "I act for balance. You don't kill arrogance with noise, you starve it, deny it leverage, let it rot quietly while the world believes nothing is happening." She laughed softly, incredulous but understanding. Outside, the empire was bleeding equity, invisible to all but those who watched the chessboard closely. 2 months later, Celeste sat in a board meeting, colour draining from her face as counsel slid a file across the table. "There's been a shift in ownership," they said. "Veris Capital has reached 26%, they've nominated 2 directors." Her voice trembled. "Who are they?" "A holding firm based in London, no traceable links." Her stomach knotted. Calls to contacts yielded nothing, or silence masquerading as ignorance. Finally, one voice whispered, "Celeste, I think Veris is tied to Moro." The quiet that followed was surgical, slicing through the last vestiges of her certainty. She arrived at my office unannounced one rainy morning. No cameras, no assistants, just her and the ghosts of every conversation, every deal, every betrayal we'd shared. "You're behind Veris," she said, voice sharp, brittle. "I am Veris," I replied, softly, calm, deliberate. "You bought my company." "Your company," I corrected, letting the words linger like smoke, "was already for sale. I merely offered market price." Her laugh cracked, brittle against the glass walls. "You think this makes you the winner?" "No," I said, voice low, even. "This makes me the rightful owner. Betrayal is emotional, acquisition is structural." She stepped closer, eyes flashing. "You could have ruined me publicly." "That would have been mercy," I said, measured. "This is permanence." She paused, a final pivot between defiance and defeat. "You'll never be me." "No," I said, letting the rain outside mark the rhythm of inevitability. "I made sure of that." The transfer completed. Ink bleeding smoothly across company's house filings. Veris Capital, 52%, effective 14 July. The empire had changed hands with elegance, irony, and the subtle satisfaction of quiet conquest. Amira leaned in, whispering, "Congratulations, Ms. Moro. You now own Lux and Linen." I looked up, serene, letting the truth settle. "No," I said, voice low, layered with precision. "I've just reclaimed the narrative." The rain fell harder, like applause from an indifferent city. For the first time, I allowed myself a faint, private smile, not of triumph, but of relief. Redemption isn't loud. It waits patiently until it cannot be ignored. Celeste stood in her new office, the room stripped of excess, echoing with emptiness. Ivory curtains hung like pale ghosts, the furniture minimal, deliberate, a stage for humility. A press release waited on the desk, its title glaring back at her. Ward Luck's Holdings, a rebirth of transparency. Jordan hovered close, nervous, voice low. "You need to sound genuine, tearful if possible, people love redemption." Celeste's reflection blinked back, panicked yet rehearsed. "Genuine, I am genuine." Jordan shook his head, impatient. "No, you're performing genuine, that's different." She exhaled, fingers trembling over the digital signature. The smile she pressed into her face felt brittle, paper-thin. One click later, the statement was live. Across town, Velin's loft was a sanctuary of quiet light and polished surfaces. Evelyn cradled a porcelain cup of tea, the city's shimmer spread below like a silent audience. Lydia perched on the edge of the sofa, eyes on Evelyn. "She's going live, the humility narrative." Evelyn's gaze never wavered from the Thames, muted under fading clouds. "Good," she murmured. "Let the world witness desperation. Every move she makes tightens the trap." Her fingers hovered over the laptop keyboard, checking server logs, monitoring order surges. Inquiries trickled in politely, probing the differences between Velin and Ward Lux. Evelyn allowed herself the faintest, cold smile. "Subtlety," she whispered, "is lethal." By late morning, a leading investigative journalist released the story everyone had been waiting for. Headline: The Ward Lux Collapse, Mismanagement, Misrepresentation, and the Woman Behind Velin. The article methodically dismantled Celeste's over-leveraged finances, the unpaid suppliers, and the stealthy transfer of shares to Veris Capital, all without naming Evelyn. Social media erupted as if the city itself were mocking her. Memes flourished. Celeste's redemption arc sponsored by irony. Celeste's phone buzzed relentlessly. Investors called, suppliers demanded clarification, employees emailed resignations. Every message was a reminder. The empire she'd tried to rebuild was already beyond repair. Late afternoon, Celeste arrived at Velin's office, her composure fraying. You made them write this. Every article, every leak," she demanded. Evelyn leaned back, serene. "I didn't need to. Truth writes itself when failure is already scripted." "This isn't over." "It is," Evelyn said softly, letting the weight of the words hang like smoke. "You built your empire on mirrors and illusions. I bought the mirrors and the smoke cleared." Celeste's hand trembled on the door handle. I could fight back, legal action, PR." "You already did," Evelyn replied, voice velvet but sharp. "You fought your own collapse." The irony lingered in the air, thicker than any perfume, sharper than any sword. That evening, Velin's live-streamed gala unfolded like a quiet reckoning. The collection, reflections, each design was deliberate, symbolic. Transparent panels where secrets once hid. Metallic threads forming fractured chains. Tags declaring integrity included, and authenticity over influence. Unaware of the personal story, the audience called it revolutionary. Those in the know saw poetry, justice stitched in silk. Every camera angle, every flash was a reminder to Celeste. The game was over. After the gala, Evelyn and Lydia lingered in the loft, quiet except for the hum of the city. "Do you ever want to confront her publicly?" Lydia asked. "Make a statement?" "No," Evelyn replied, gaze sweeping across London's glittering grid. "That would be vulgar. The beauty is watching someone destroy themselves gracefully." "Celeste." "Some people lose their companies," Evelyn said softly. "Some people lose themselves. I just reclaimed what was mine, quietly, elegantly, permanently. Power isn't loud, it's quiet and permanent." The fashion world buzzed. Velin became synonymous with innovative transparency, while Celeste's attempted redemption turned into unintentional satire. A columnist tweeted, "Velin dresses women in truth. Ward Lux tried to dress them in lies. Guess which one survived?" Evelyn didn't gloat, she observed, let the consequences speak. Evelyn stood on her rooftop, glass of wine in hand, overlooking the Thames. Reflections fractured in the water below, glittering, honest, relentless. "Some people lose their companies. Some people lose themselves. I just reclaimed what was mine, quietly, elegantly, permanently." Lydia smiled faintly. "And Celeste?" Evelyn's eyes scanned the cityscape, serene. "She has a mirror, that's enough." Rain began again, pattering gently against glass. A quiet applause, a private witness to the end of one story and the undisturbed rise of another. Silence became Evelyn's sharpest weapon, and in the end, every empire has a mirror waiting. Subscribe to Everyday Dramas for more stories of betrayal, revenge, and poetic justice, where every quiet move speaks louder than the loudest empire. Sunlight spilled across the loft, slicing through the tall windows and pooling on polished oak floors. Evelyn moved silently, the soft click of her heels a quiet rhythm in the morning air. The city beyond glimmered, indifferent to triumphs and failures alike. Lydia hovered over a tablet, scrolling through the latest global sales reports. "Velin's performance has doubled in 6 months, she said, voice low, precise. Pre-orders for the next collection are already outpacing forecasts." Evelyn poured coffee into her favorite white mug, watching steam curl like smoke above the liquid. "Numbers are good," she murmured, "but they're just numbers. What matters is the way people feel when they put our clothes on. How a garment can carry dignity, integrity, intention." Her gaze drifted to a framed newspaper clipping pinned neatly on the wall. Ward Luck's collapse, lessons in transparency. The irony struck her in a slow, sharp pulse, a reminder of everything built, everything lost, everything regained. You ever think about her? Lydia asked softly. Celeste, Evelyn's lips curved faintly. I think she's been given every opportunity to reflect, and she did, just not the way anyone intended. Later, Velin's team gathered in the loft. A quiet cluster of humanity, tailors, designers, PR, IT, finance, those who had labored unseen but essential. Glasses in hand, they leaned against counters, chairs, and each other's shoulders. Evelyn raised her own glass, calm, poised, voice carrying without strain. We started this company to make clothes, she said, but more importantly to make a statement. Integrity matters, transparency matters, and loyalty, true loyalty, matters most of all. Glasses rose in unison, the clink soft, deliberate. It wasn't about profit or applause or headlines. It was about survival, resilience, and reclaiming dignity one quiet, deliberate step at a time. Outside the loft, the world noticed. Headlines, blogs, social feeds, all played with irony like a well-aimed mirror. Velin is the brand of the year, dressing women in truth. Ward Luck's, meanwhile, serves as a cautionary tale. Charm may build a company, but honesty sustains it. Influencers posted, Velin, finally luxury that doesn't lie. Evelyn watched the satire unfold with a faint smile. It was poetic, yes, but also practical. Truth, when elegantly wielded, proved to be the most durable brand strategy. Later still, Evelyn sat alone, leather-bound notebook open, pen poised. Every word measured, every thought deliberate. Revenge is quiet, elegant, and final. It doesn't need applause. It waits in the ledgers, in contracts, in every calculated step. Some people are destined to collapse, some are destined to rise, and I prefer to rise. A soft knock at the door. Lydia appeared, expression curious but deferential. You've done everything you wanted, and more, she said. Yes, Evelyn replied, voice steady, almost tender. But the important part isn't what I've done, it's what I've avoided. Anger, vanity, spectacle, that's the real victory. Evelyn wandered a private exhibition of fashion history, tracing a path through garments both revered and reviled. One display caught her, the old Ward Luck's collection, once coveted, now relics of vanity and mismanagement. These pieces defined an era and its downfall, a curator whispered. Evelyn touched the glass softly, reverently. In that reflection she saw more than fabric and thread, she saw lessons. They are beautiful, and they taught me everything. Back at Velin HQ, she pored over expansion plans, ethical sourcing, mentorship programs, global outreach. Each spreadsheet, each proposal, a quiet assertion of principle over performance. You're changing the industry, Lydia said quietly. No, Evelyn murmured, a small, satisfied smile tugging at her lips. I'm just showing what it can be when the right people are in charge. The city lights reflected off glass walls, a fractured mosaic of possibility. Growth wasn't about empire or revenge, it was about something enduring, authentic, untouchable. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. No fanfare, no applause. She had dignity restored, betrayal outsmarted, a brand built on principle rather than vanity. In the distance, she imagined Celeste attempting to reclaim relevance, struggling, failing, perhaps learning too late. Either way, it no longer mattered. Velin's empire had matured beyond spectacle. Quiet victories are the sharpest of all. Subscribe to Everyday Dramas for more stories where betrayal burns slow, revenge is elegant, and silence speaks louder than any empire. Celeste sat in a glass-walled conference room, the city sprawled below like a crown she once wore with ease. The office was stark, rented, sterile, nothing resembling the penthouse empire she had ruled. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Unpaid invoices, supplier threats, investor demands. Jordan, her PR agent, leaned close, voice hesitant. You can still stage a comeback, a public interview, a charity tie-in. Spin it as redemption. Celeste's lips twitched, half smile, half snarl. Redemption or desperation, she murmured. There's a fine line, isn't there? Jordan nodded. The public always loves a comeback story. Celeste's eyes gleamed, sharp. Then let's give them a story. At Velin HQ, Evelyn sipped espresso, sunlight scattering across the loft. The city below glimmered, unaware of the quiet chess match unfolding. She's trying again, Lydia said softly. Publicly, will you intervene? Evelyn shook her head, calm, measured. No, the greatest victories are often invisible. Let her unravel in the light she craves. Notifications pinged, clips of Celeste's interview appeared across social media, awkward, rehearsed, full of overplayed emotion. Memes proliferated. Celeste Ward, acting humble, failing spectacularly. Evelyn's lips curved faintly. Let the satire speak for itself, let consequence be the performance. Within 48 hours, Velin's legal team quietly released a report. Headline: Ward Lux Holdings, the financial truth behind the facade. It detailed mismanaged funds, misrepresented supplier contracts, and the gradual, irreversible acquisition by Veris Capital. Celeste's comeback turned into public spectacle. Social media erupted. Ward Lux redemption sold separately. Her empire, once glossy, untouchable, now lay as a cautionary case study. Celeste arrived unannounced at Velin HQ. Heels clacked against the polished floor, face pale, fingers trembling. Evelyn didn't rise, calmly reviewing sketches for the next collection. You've ruined everything." Celeste's voice was sharp, desperate. Evelyn didn't flinch. "I didn't ruin anything, you did. I just followed the contracts, the filings, and reality." "You think you're better than me." "I don't think, Celeste. I am better, not because I'm cruel, but because I learned from your mistakes." Celeste's hands shook. "I could fight back." Evelyn's voice was soft, cold. "You already did and lost." Celeste turned to leave. Evelyn's words followed her like a shadow. "Mirrors don't lie, that's all you have left." The next day, headlines ran side by side. Velin redefines ethical luxury, Ward Lux collapses. From betrayal to triumph, Evelyn Morau's quiet empire. Influencers added their own verdicts. Velin, clothing that tells the truth, Ward Lux, drama that tells itself. Even the fashion world, prone to forgetting history, paused long enough to laugh at Celeste's spectacle. Satire, elegant and unintentional, had done its work. Evelyn walked through Velin's studio, observing designers, tailors, and marketers at work. This was no longer just a company, it was a living statement. "You've truly changed the industry," Lydia said, watching her. Evelyn paused, eyes tracing the lines of glass and fabric. "No, I just showed what it could be if someone competent and principled ran it." Her gaze lingered on a glass display of Velin's iconic lines. Reflections, inheritance, the truth wears well. Each piece a testament to strategy, patience, and elegance. "Some people build to show off," she murmured. "I built to endure, that's the difference." That evening, Evelyn stood before a floor-to-ceiling mirror in her office. For a long moment she studied her reflection, calm, measured, untouched by malice. "The last mirror reflects only what you allow to survive. Mine only shows truth," she whispered. City lights blinked outside like silent witnesses. Evelyn's lips curved faintly, subtle, victorious, untouchable. Silence endured where empire once roared, and in the end, patience and principle were the only mirrors worth keeping. Subscribe to Everyday Dramas for more tales of betrayal, revenge, and poetic justice, where every quiet move speaks louder than the loudest empire.